Hello and welcome to Beyond the Scenes, where I interview friends and people from the entertainment industry. My name is Andres Cuervo, and today I have Adele Drahos, and not only an actress and a creative, but soon to be a poultry extraordinaire expert.
Yes.
Again, I'm saying that in the context of coming to my house, meeting my chickens and the little farm, and then how the mind of a creative also fusions with the mind of a farmer. So, but thank you, Adele, for coming.
Yeah.
I'm excited about this conversation. So, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
I wanted to know a little bit about your backstory and how you came into acting.
Oh, I have just always loved everything creative. So even as a little girl, I loved playing dress up. We play imagination, runaway princesses and settlers that have to make our own stick stew. And I've never been shy of being in front of people. I remember putting on little dance performances with my grandma or for my grandma, I should say. She did not dance with me. And in 6th grade, I did a theater camp where we put on over the summer Annie Jr. And I played Lily St. Regis, which is the villain's whoozy girlfriend. Because I was one of the older kids, but also because Rooster and Lily, I think his name is Rooster, they only have one song in the whole show. And despite me sharing a name with another very well-known singer, I do not. So I got Lily St. Regis because she doesn't have to sing. I'm not rolling in the deep. And I've just always loved acting. I've just always from that show into middle school, into high school, I was very active in the ITS, which is the drama club, the International Thespian Society.
Oh my goodness, you were a theater nerd.
But I grew up in a very small town, so we didn't even have our own theater. We went to the middle school to put on our shows where there was a auditorium, but it wasn't like a theater. And it just I don't even know if there is a theater class at my high school anymore, to this moment. But then in my junior year, I found the college I wanted to go to. I just knew from the get-go I wanted to act. And I applied to one school. I filled out an application to 2. But I was looking at North Carolina School of the Arts.
Okay.
And SCAD, the Savannah College of Art and Design. And the reason I didn't do North Carolina School of the Arts is because they sounded like they were very separational, if that's a word. I like to make up words. It was like, if you're there for acting, you're acting. If you're there for film, it's film. Whereas SCAD was very collaborative. And they're like, no, our actors we need for our film students. And if you want to do a photography class, you can. And that was I was like, well, yes, I want to do all of the dabbling. Yeah. And I just fell in love with the school and applied and went before I ever even set foot on campus. And it's not a cheap school. Scholarships help. And I do realize very grateful for the opportunity and to be in a position to go there. But I loved it. It was an art school. We had 20-person max classrooms. I'd have died in a 200-person lecture hall. Yeah. I'd have died. It's always kind of been a thing. I mean, even when I was young and we did early plays and performances at church, I loved it. It was intoxicating to make people feel whatever that was,
whatever.
Yeah, I remember I wrote this monologue and performed it as Mary, right? And I was like, in high school, like, I don't know what it's like to have a baby, much less like baby of the world. And there were just mothers in the audience that were crying, and I could hear them sniffling, and I was like, I did that. So I was like, oh, okay. It is very empowering, and I think it's intoxicating in the sense that it's so important for people, because we have to connection is like our ultimate grounding, whether you're an introvert or an extrovert. You know, a lot of people felt that during COVID when you had the sever in connection, and that's one thing that I love about movies and TV and acting is storytelling is at the root of what I am as a storyteller. And so yeah, there's
I was thinking like my kids are doing Annie this season.
Oh, that's so cute. So you know the play.
Yeah, exactly. And so they're actually, very excited. They saw the musical that was put out recently. They've done a bunch of like other plays. My son recently told me, I want to be an actor. And then I felt like so embarrassed myself, like a little bit of maybe what? Are you really sure that you would be? And that's what I wanted to ask you. You're saying that you're coming from a small town. I'm not really sure if you have other creatives or actors or people in the arts in your family, or if he was like sometimes it is, I want to be an actress, and they're like, well, what?
Okay. No, I am kind of first generation. My parents have always been very supportive, despite what their fears may or still are have been. They have always encouraged me, and that is a blessing, and I know that to have had that support. On the flip side, I have always made sure that like I was gonna give it my all and go after my dreams and make sure that that is what I wanted. And somehow I've never had to like take out a loan or beg for money, or my, apart from Christmas and the, one off when dad's like, here, it's not like I've ever had to be like, hey, I need $2,000 from you guys. So I've always found a way to support myself, and make sure that me choosing this career is not a burden. But that wasn't ever in my mind to begin with. That's kind of who I am. I'm an overachiever. But yeah, they have always been supportive. But my mom is fitness. She works at a YMCA, always had. My dad is retired Coast Guard. So I had like a great aunt who was a poet. But there's no like artists in my family. That was just something that I was wired to do from birth, and just kind of always had the will and ability to pursue. But yeah, and yeah, like I said, my parents, they're probably like, follow your dreams.
Call us.
You've got this. But they have
Break a leg, but have insurance.
Yeah, yes, true, and I do. But yeah, I even remember when I got accepted to SCAD, I actually cried because I was upset, because I was like, I knew that was not a cheap school, and I can only imagine what tuition costs these days. But it was a private school, and I was like, I don't know how we're going to be able to do this. And my dad was just like, we're going to figure it out. And that's kind of, having that kind of support has resonated in me, that I'm like, I'll figure it out. And something has always come along to help pay the bills, to help get me through whatever. And I attribute a lot of that to just choosing to monopolize on my creative life.
Yeah, and it's something that comes as a concurring theme in some of my conversation, is the importance of both having teachers and having family that are supporting you. It's almost like a determining factor later on in life when you're pursuing your dreams, or not having their support almost pushes people to even have to work with it, work with what they have. But whether it be the support or the lack of support, it seems like it's an age where you make decisions that are very important, and having people around you that inspire you, or that in a way are pushing you, it's always very important. Do you remember any particular person in that part of your life that you can recall and say, oh man, this was a big impact in me in my career?
My parents don't understand what I do sometimes, like me trying to explain improv to them. It's fun. It's very humbling for me. But they've always supported me. And so that's a thing, but it hasn't been like a mentorship. And there have been actors and actresses that I have admired, but none have been like, because of her, I want to be an actor. It's always just been this innate need to express. When I'm in the movie theater and I'm watching certain things, I will occasionally step out for a moment in my brain and just be like, I want to be a part of that. Like, I want to be the small cog that gets to create this story that makes me feel things.
That suspense of disbelief, right? Sitting in.
And listen, I am not a hoity-toity filmmaker person. There are movies that I can appreciate and respect for the craft of being a good movie. I like what I like. You know, I'm like, I know when I go to see whatever movie that it's going to be dumb and it's going to follow a formula. But it works. Like, okay, so like Marvel fatigue is really striking everybody. And they're like, I'm so tired of superhero movies.
Yes.
I will still go to the theaters for every Marvel movie. Because I just like it. I'm just like, I just want a suspension of disbelief for 2 hours and watch some people have some superpowers and watch a little romance, watch a little action. Any fantasy, high fantasy film, count me in. You know, I can appreciate like everything everywhere all at once, right? I have friends obsessed.
Really?
And
with the googly eyes.
Yeah, just the whole thing. And I'm like, yeah, I watched it and I can appreciate the creativity of it and the masterpiece that it is. I have no desire to ever watch it again. Like, it's not for me. And that's the other thing that, you know, about this world is it's like everyone is so different that what affects them is different. And so, listen, Lord of the Rings will forever trump everything in life. Like, there's a story that just hits home on so many different levels. Is just the I don't, you know, I like, if I could be in the next Lord of the Rings, sure. But again, high fantasy. I'm already prejudiced towards, like, I'm already biased towards loving this, not prejudiced bias. But honestly, it's not like there's one movie that said, you know, I want to do this. But yeah, I remember when I didn't even know what Lord of the Rings was. My dad was the fan. And he's the one
of the books, I guess.
Yeah, I had read The Hobbit like a couple of times. We read it. My first grade teacher read it to us. And my dad had kind of read it with me. And then I read it a third time after Lord of the Rings came out. So I was familiar with The Hobbit, but I didn't know Lord of the Rings. That was my dad's thing. So, you know, because it was the holiday blockbuster. So we would always go to the movies as a family and go see it was always Lord of the Rings and Harry Potter movies.
Yes.
And I remember the first one, I didn't know it was a trilogy. And so we get to the end and they're like mounting the hill. And I was like, well, where's Mordor? Why are there credits? Where's the rest of the story? And then I found out it was 2 more movies. I was like, I have to wait 2 years to finish this. But it was just, it delivered. Yeah. And I, you know, rewatch it every couple of years. And
the CGI wasn't that bad for being, yeah, I know.
On every aspect of filmmaking, it holds.
Just makes you feel like engaged again and again. It's great. I watched the whole trilogy of the Lord of the Rings with my kids, and also The Hobbit as well. And the series that are coming up. It's like they're hooked. They're not too much into Harry Potter yet. But
yeah,
you know,
they'll get there.
Is that indoctrination?
Yeah, it's the we'll make them love it.
Second. But through movies, you know, I got to discover another world, literally another country, another culture, and open my horizons to travel and to find other things that are not necessarily film related. And I feel like as creatives, we can choose to just be encapsulated in, like, I'm a filmmaker and I'm just going to do this. Or we can have more, like you were mentioning before, like a holistic vision of what somebody in the arts is, and doubling into handcrafts, into acting, into writing, into poetry, into many ways of expressing the art. What are some of the ways that you've been able to explore your creativity and your passion for all things creative?
Every way. Every way. While acting is like my most passionate and foremost pursuit, if I didn't have other creative outlets, I would be a hot mess, because acting is not there 24/7. It's not a career that can support you. I went through I wrote short stories in middle school and high school. I like to draw. I got really good at drawing Scooby-Doo. He was my first love, Scooby and Shaggy. I got into poetry after that, painting after that. In my more recent years, I've really loved writing. I've done a couple of scripts, a couple of short films, a couple of features that I've written and really, really like workshopped, and I feel pretty proud of. That helps because that kind of supplements acting in a way that it's like I write stories that even if I was not to produce them, or even if I was not to be cast in them, to just see them on the screen would bring me joy, because it's the stories I want to see. So do I write myself as the main protagonist and picture like, it's my voice, because that's kind of like this little tease of like, it kind of feels like I'm acting in it, but I'm writing it. But I have found in recent years that writing, I used to try to write to produce. So I would say like, okay, well, we're not acting right now. I'm going to create my own content and I'm going to write this short and we're going to make it. That actually brought a lot more stress into my life and took some of the joy out of creating and writing. And so when I started writing to just tell a story and to fulfill myself in between the auditions, which has been far and few because of a lot of recent events in the last 3 years, it was much more fulfilling. And I'm like, okay, maybe this doesn't get produced one day, but I felt great on the process and being able to create and get to know these characters. So writing, I have also in the last 2 years gotten more into costume making and sewing, because one of my side hustles, if you will, is circ arts. So like stilt walking and living statue and mime and things like that. So especially for stilts, a lot of different events. Some companies I work for provide costumes, but sometimes having your own gives you a leg up.
Okay.
And so I've gotten a lot more into sewing.
And you do your own makeup and all that?
And I look at Pinterest photos and I kind of figure it out. So it's all, YouTube has been a great learning classroom.
Yeah.
I mean, there's nothing you can't find on YouTube. If you want to learn something, you don't have an excuse.
Yeah.
It's out there. But I mean, even as early as, elementary school, I remember when we'd have library day, I'd go straight to the craft book section. I loved it, making the pine cone bird feeders and pet rocks and feather projects. I mean, there's just so many things. And so even back in the day, I would craft all kinds of things. And that's really helped me, again, with all of these supplemental jobs. I've also gotten into photography. In college, I got into photography. So that's where I have, when I'm not acting, it's like, cool, I might be doing some headshots. Or I have recently started a business. And because of creative skill sets I've acquired over the years, I can design my own business cards. I can design my own business website. I can shoot my own film, shoot my own commercial ad for the business and edit it. I can act in it. I can be the character. I can build all of the props. It's like this immersive murder mystery game. So there's props involved. I can build the props and design that. So it just, every aspect of having a creative, like it can be utilized and has been, and that's really helped serve me. It's like I don't think I'm a master at any one thing,
Okay.
but I'm decent at a lot of things, and I like that because I mean I could be a master at acting, but that's still not like paying the bills every day, right? So being kind of a Renaissance woman, if you will,
Okay.
has really served me in having chosen a freelance creative life. So if it's creative, I've probably tried it.
Today I heard, well, I was reading through social media, and I came across this kind of quote that said that you are not burned out when you're doing art, you get burned out when you're producing content. So I don't know what you think about that.
100%. I don't know how influencers do it because it is so much work that goes into it. And I guess as long as you're still happy about the content you're doing, but when you're doing art, to me, and you're producing content, that's because you have to. That's because you're being held accountable to it because it's probably you trying to pay some kind of bill. When you're producing art, the end goal is not the end. It's the process. And this is my interpretation of the words.
It's the journey, not the destination.
Yeah. So it's like, yes, you want to finish the painting, finish the costume, finish the script, but it's not to just get to the end. It's because you are fulfilled by the active creation of it. And that's something that, as I was going to talk about it, there's a book called Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert. She wrote Eat, Pray, Love, but Big Magic is about having a healthy relationship with a creative life. And one thing that she talks about in the book, which just hits home as a creative that I'm like, I can vouch this is very accurate. You cannot you cannot put the pressures of finances on a creative career because it's not a 9 to 5. It's not a visual ladder that you can climb to get the next paycheck or the next raise. A creative career is very open for interpretation on what is received and what isn't. You're putting your work out there, and when you do that, it can be scrutinized. You know, it's like with the movies. You can put an amazing movie out there. Not everyone's going to agree it's great. So you can't force your creative career to pay all of your bills. You have to be able to find something that you can adapt to help supplement that, because then you become resentful of the creative career you've chosen. And then, well, why are you doing it? If it's not bringing you joy, don't do it.
It's like Marie Kondo. If it's not bringing you joy, sparking joy, just set it aside.
Just de-cleanse your life.
Yeah. But if you can have a healthy relationship with your creative, can you have an unhealthy relationship with the creative as well?
Oh, absolutely. Well, I mean, Elizabeth will talk about like the starving artist. That's not good. Art wasn't meant to make us stressed and unhappy. Art was meant to express and release. And yeah, I think there's a lot of people who have very unhealthy, unrewarding relationships with their careers. I mean, with acting, we had the pandemic, which there's no making anything during that as an actor. There's no films. It's a collaborative. You've got to be in person. So that completely shut down. And then we had about 2 years where things were booming. And then we had the strike. And so for another 2 years, we had no industry. And people are like, I haven't acted in a while. I don't even know if I want to do this anymore. Why do I keep trying? I will be the last person to push you to keep trying. Because I'll be like, well, then don't. If it is not bringing you joy, why are you going to get... So what if you've put all of your eggs in this basket for a few years? You can change at any point. I mean, sure, there's circumstances with finances and sometimes there's some things you have to do, but that's also just, you got to be a responsible adult. If you are suffering for your art, it's like, why? That's unattractive. We're all about mental health these days. We want to figure this out. We want to make the most of our lives and contribute our best selves to society and make things better. If your art is making you miserable, that's going to make people around you miserable. Why are you putting that negative energy out in the world?
As much as you're acting and pretending,
Yeah. No, acting is about truth.
But again, in acting, we talk about typecasting, right? And how some people get the same roles again and again because they're kind of typecast into a certain parameter or something. But I think in general, as artists, we can also be typecast in the sense that, oh, you're just an artist and you're just an actor and you do circus like craziness and you are sewing and you are designing your own cars. Like, what is that? And the reality is that we're artists, but we're not just that. There are many other facets of our lives. There are many other ways that we can explore, and I've seen that in you. Every time I'm connected and I see something unique that you're doing, something usually that makes me laugh a lot.
What is she up to today?
It's like, what is
the rant for today?
But honestly, my way of seeing it is very inspirational because I don't know what's gonna come out. And it'll be I never know what I'm gonna see Adele doing this time. But that is very unique because it's hard to typecast somebody that is willing to risk and is willing to try different things. And it's almost like putting faith into something that you're good at. I'm a creative, and regardless of what the alternatives are, I'm always going to try to make this work. Like what you say, not giving up. Like in myself, there have been seasons where I'm like, I don't want to be a filmmaker anymore. I need to have an exit strategy. I have to, somehow make money in another way. But then I always come back to like, I'm passionate about this. I have to make it work, and then that dry season goes and then another season comes and I'm glad I didn't quit. But the temptation is always there because of the pressures, because of many other external factors that really push you to doubt the calling and the passion that you have. I don't know if you have felt that pressure as well, and also how you deal with that to just recognize this is my calling, this is my passion. I'm going to keep trying.
Well, to start, it's not quitting unless you never go back. Then it's just a break.
Okay.
Right? Yeah. And I think it's okay to take breaks. If it's not, again, bringing you joy and you say, I have to step away, you step away. You pivot, you side quest, for a while if you need to. And then that's the thing about the arts is it'll always be there.
Wow.
It'll always be there. There'll always be something you can create in some fashion. I have never doubted my desire, my calling, my purpose, whatever it's called, to be an actor. Even in the pandemic, when you weren't doing it for a year, sure we were doing monologues on camera and stuff like that, but after you've taped so many monologues and stared at the Zoom screen for so long, it's like I gotta get away. I gotta look at nature for a second. I'm a very patient person, or stubborn. I don't know. I'm German. My family's German, so that could be just a different word for patient. I have never doubted that this is what I want to do, and however long that takes, I'm going to do it. This is a double-edged sword. I don't know what I can't do, and I found that out in life, that if I want to try something, I'm going to do it, because I don't know that I can't do it.
Until you try.
And then you're like, oh yeah, no, there goes my mental health. I can't do that. So at attempting things, that's never really been an issue. I've never stopped myself from doing something because I'm just like, I can't do that. Like, that's impossible. And I'm like, no, we're going to try this. And then I might realize like, oh, this isn't working. I'm getting very stressed. I am getting very heartbroken over this. We got to step away now because this is unhealthy. So on that same token, it's like I said, I just recently kind of started this business in November, and friends are like, "Oh, that's crazy! That's so great!" Or "Wow, look at you! You're an entrepreneur." And I'm like, "Yeah, sure. It's just business. I don't know. You just create a logo and get an LLC, and no, there's more to it." When you start doing it, I was like, "Oh, there's also this thing. Oh, and then there's insurance. Oh, and then I got to market. And then I have to do the business and figure out how to market. And how does one Google ads?" And so it's like I get in the throes of it, but I've never hung up the towel on something that was because I didn't think I could begin it in the first place. But I've done plenty of projects that in my brain have been failures. My therapist might say otherwise. And I don't like failing. I don't like feeling like something didn't come to fruition. I had a project in 2020 when everyone was going through heavy depression, essentially, most everyone. Most depression I've ever felt in my life. I am not.
I can attest to that.
Yeah, like I'm not someone who has had to struggle with depression in life. And this is the closest that I've come to being able to better understand that. And I started listening to a podcast with screenwriters. And it was the screenwriter, they did Up, and I forget what their names are. And I forget what the name of the podcast is. Screen Talk. No, I don't know. Anyways, so I was listening to a podcast and they're talking about screenwriting, and I would go for walks and I would listen to this, and then I would start to get inspired. And I was like, I'm gonna write my story now. I'm gonna really hone in. I had a short story that I had already written, and so this was me adapting it to a feature. And that pulled me out of my depression.
Okay.
Then, so I spent a few months working on the feature, which turned into years, actually, I think. And then eventually I was like, okay, I want to do this. So let's make a sizzle for the feature, if you will, whether that was a short film or a teaser. And for a year, I wrote and I rewrote and I completely started from scratch, and I rewrote this script, trying to get this short film because I felt like I owed it to this feature to get made. And every time I just kept hitting walls, and the team that I had with me just, was like, "Oh, you can't do it because of this reason. We can't do it because of this." And that could have just been, I just didn't have the right team. But it was also, I was pushing so hard for something that just didn't want to happen. And that's been a struggle for me is where do you draw the line between what's supposed to be and what's meant to be and what's not? And I don't know if I believe anything's meant to be. Either you try it or you don't. And
there's
then
seasons as well.
Yeah.
Could not work in that season. Maybe there's another season where there's another iteration of your project that does work with, like you said, with another team, with another time.
Potentially, yeah. But I realized, and this was something I kind of saw in hindsight after reading Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert. Just because the story that I wrote wasn't meant to be produced. At least maybe not right now, right? And I have no goals to produce it in the future currently. It was meant to carry me out of my depression.
Wow.
And that it wasn't the pressure I was putting on it, was because that wasn't its purpose. The creation of this story, these characters that I fell in love with, it was meant to help me. And again, that is art. When you put the financial pressure on it, you start to detach from it. But when you just go with the journey of it, it can be so fulfilling, and it can literally pull you out of depression. Again, there's clinical depression. There's a whole other side to that. But that I think is important, is the pressure that you put on your art. And if you need to step away from it for a while, or just Marie Kondo it and say, "Thank you, I need you to go away now," do that. Because maybe that's, trust that gut, and don't try to force something to come to life if it already served its purpose. It already lived, and now it is past. as an artistic way of saying that.
Yeah, no, completely, agree. And just thinking of that, man, how many times we are just pushing things because we feel and we believe on those at the expense of our own health, our own relationships. Many people say, I want to be a successful actor. I want to be a successful cinematographer, no matter what. And nobody's going to care about me unless I care about myself, And it becomes so self-centered, this search for approval, this search for success in the industry, that I've seen it in actors as well. When somebody gets the part, even if they're friends, you feel like, oh, personal. What is it that they didn't see in me? It's not, did my performance serve the story, and that's why I didn't get it or I got it, but what do I have or don't have that person has? It can happen as a camera operator, cinematographer. It's like, why did they choose my friend? Even if and worse is when they're not my friends and they don't succeed, and you feel just a little bit of like, yeah, your failure is my, and it's kind of learning to navigate those feelings and say, hey, listen, it's not about me as a person. They're not rejecting me. They're rejecting my audition, or they're picking somebody else's audition over mine. But I feel like that's something that we all have to deal with, that fear of personal rejection when you're an artist. And it's not, because when you build something with your hands, I don't know, they're not rejecting you. There's something that they didn't want with the piece. But I feel like when you are an artist, where you are acting or you're behind the camera or something, you take it very personal.
Yeah. Well, it's like anytime you create anything in whatever facet that is, if you are a writer, if you are a painter, if you are an influencer, if you are a photographer, anytime you create something and you put it out there, that is no longer just yours. You are putting it out there to be praised and to be rejected and to be discussed. And the sooner you come to terms with that as any kind of creative, it's like the better off you're going to be, because you're putting it out there. That means they have a right to their opinion. And believe me, the internet will opinion, If you never put it out there, then you never stand the chance of rejection. You never stand the chance of feedback as you could view it. You're safe, and your art is for you. And that is okay too, I think. If you're creating for you and you have 1 million paintings, or you have a script that you've been working on and you don't want feedback on it, you keep it for you. Mm-hmm. But art is expression, and it is a reflection of society. And I do believe, share your art with the world, because somebody out there gets it. You just got to find who they are. But that does come at a risk. It can be rejected. On the resentment, yeah, I don't know a person that hasn't felt that at least once, because it's something you do want and you're seeing somebody else get it. I had a friend who put it very, very visually, that it's people, the perspective is like there's a pie, and one person's getting a big piece, right? And they're the one that gets the piece. And you're like, oh, well, that's not my piece. Yeah. And so you start to get resentful because you wanted the big piece and you're not getting any pieces of this pie. But the perspective should be, it's just not your pie.
Okay.
You are a completely different pie. And so what's meant for them wasn't meant for you. And I personally, I love when I stumble across a friend or an Atlanta talent in a movie or a TV show, because that's my community. And if I surround myself with people that are doing it, I'm in the right circle, and it's only a matter of time.
Yeah.
And it's exciting, and you do, because you know how good that feels, and you want the success for people you care about. But there are some people that, on social media will be like, booked it. And you don't know if this is a big budget Marvel feature film, or if this is an industrial that only corporate Home Depot is going to see, you know? But your brain is like, well, they're booking it all. Why haven't I booked anything? And you don't know that they booked this, or when they're dropping something, that they actually filmed this 2 years ago. So I did start muting certain friends that were constantly putting that, because it would put me in a headspace that's like, well, now I'm getting upset and now I'm getting resentful. And why didn't my agent send me that audition, you know, when I don't even have the full picture? And so that's why I'm a very strong advocate for, if you can't say what it is, don't share it. If you can't talk about the project, don't share it.
Under NDA, but
Right. Yeah. It's like, no. If you can't talk about a project, don't share it. Because we're all trying to do this and we all want it really bad. Now, when you've got a project that's dropped, yes, talk about it. Get people to watch it. Get the traction. Let that help momentum your career. But yeah, I've definitely felt that resentment. But what do I do about it? I just like,
yeah,
I'm gonna mute you, because I just don't need to, because it's not good for me.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna step away. You know, a lot of people do social media cleanses. I'm gonna step away, and I think that's great. Try to, filter yourself. I mean, half of my social media is dog videos now, and I have very carefully and specifically curated that very intentionally. So it's not like I'm looking at things that are going to upset me or make me spiral, or,
Now, something that I get pretty clear from our conversation is that when you take the fun, the joy out of this passion that you have, something that you have dedicated your life, your time, it has become, your means of providing for yourself or your family or whatever. When you take that joy, that fun out of it, it just shapes into something that can become toxic, even if you love it so much. Something that really caught my attention is this project that you have in mind, where it's not about training actors in the sense of the method actor or whatever, but creating a space where people can express in different ways and have fun and enjoy, and just be more expressive and find tools that will help them ideally to become better actors, but based on having fun and enjoy. I don't know if you can speak of that a little bit.
Yeah. That was kind of born of two things. One was big magic. Sorry, I am not getting any money for proposing this book. There's no affiliate links or anything, but you should read it still. But also, I was asked to speak at a small college locally. They host this small con, and I was asked to be the speaker for it. And so I really spent a season diving into A, what happiness and joy is, and B, what creative living is. And I was like, well, if there's something I know about, it's creative living. And I like to think I'm generally a pretty happy person. I mean, it's 2020, put a spin on everything, but there's a lot of very interesting information when you really dive into these. There's a documentary called Happy, which I highly recommend. It's called Happy. And it breaks down, how do you have some of the wealthiest people in the world who are miserable and making everyone else's lives miserable, and then you have the poorest people who are just content and just joyful and just full in their souls. And as I kind of dove into that and doing the research, which right now all the numbers are out of my brain, but it's like you do have a certain amount of control over your own joy. And that's very empowering, and it should be empowering. I hope that's empowering, because that means you can make shifts to live a more purposeful and joyful and content life. And so I was creating this class, this workshop space, what have you, to better explore that. I was gearing it towards actors, because that is my field of prioritized interest. But within this community, we have so many actors, so many classes already that are just script analysis, scene study, your classic techniques, Demidov, Strasberg, Meisner, method, just Meisner. And I was like, there's enough of those classes in this town. What I think a lot of actors might be missing is especially those who got into the field later in life. So they had a different career or a different life path, if you will. They didn't go to school for it. So there's all of these exercises that they missed out on. And those are more, the things I focused on were imagination, connection, and movement. And I think these are three things that if you can just prioritize in your life, will greatly benefit you. Because A, being able to connect with your fellow man, I don't see a downside to that. That's empathy, that's understanding, that's communication, and that will only help you grow as a person and have a more fulfilled life. And when you are able to give to another person, that is fulfilling. Like you don't meet very many graciously giving people who are unhappy.
Wow.
Right. And then with movement, that is your tool. As any person, be that an artist or an athlete or somebody that has a 9-to-5, and works on piping or does secretarial work, like you are given one tool to go through this life in, and that is your body. And so being aware of your body and how to move it and all the different cool things you can do with it, and where do you hold your attention, and do you dance? I mean, there's a reason dancing is universal. It's so expressive. And can you just cliche as all get out, but dance like no one's watching? Have you done that? Do you know what that feels like when you hit that music and you're just like, oh, I just want to move my body? Like that is beauty and expression. And so being attentive to your body and your health, because your physical health affects your mental health affects your physical health. Also important. There's no downside to, until you get like so aggressively attentive that is your only focus, and then you're stressing over your body. Yeah. Not healthy. But to be aware and to love your body, especially in a society where the standards of beauty are so ranging and difficult, and where we kind of got over the slump of the 90s Barbie girl. Now we're hitting into new slumps of like Botox and anti-aging creams and, all of these things. It's like, well, that's not natural either. So to have a proper relationship with your body. And then lastly, imagination, which per this whole conversation, obviously so important to be able to imagine, to be able to dream, to stretch that. How do you work your imagination? Do you even just like a coloring book even? That is the creative side that is soul filling, and where you can really leave a legacy behind, whatever that manifests as. I'm not saying like everybody has to be an artist, but to be able to create and offer whatever that creativity is to the world, as a farmer, to create a farm, to build up that creativity seeps into so many things, that you don't have to be a painter to be a creative. And I think every person in this good earth should be a creative and has the potential to be, because we were created. Whatever your brain, whatever your beliefs are, you were created from something. You literally are a creation. Ooh, sorry. I got excited. You literally are a creation. And so to have that relationship with your imagination and to dream, that's a beautiful thing that humanity can offer, to dream, not just to greed and to want, but to dream and to create. I think.
I feel like those are kind of like pillars and principles for improv, because it's that you have to explore the movement and you have to explore the imagination and you have to communicate in such a fast way to be able to create these characters on the fly. And I wanted to touch a little bit about the improv work that you do. I personally think that improv is one of your superpowers.
Yeah.
Yes, I enjoyed it so much. It's so cool just to see you just getting a mindset and somehow like a new, like, it's almost like channeling something. Uh, so I wanted to ask you about that creative process when it comes to improvisation, and also very intrigued about your character in Hawkeye. Uh, how much of that was like the script, like what was given to you, and how much of that was your improvisational skill? Because I got a sense like there was a lot of you that was not in the pages necessarily.
Yeah, we did a lot of improv on Hawkeye, which made it a lot of fun. It's not everyone's strong suit, and that's why I do think every actor needs to take improv classes because I've used it multiple times on set. With Hawkeye particularly, every set's going to be different, but I think with Marvel and the way Jeremy Renner works, and in the MCU, they're like, well, let's just play with it. Let's see what happens. And so, there would be moments like there's an apartment scene, and we do the script, but then he would throw out just different lines, different scenarios. And I'm like, well, my original scripted line doesn't really answer what he just said. So I'm going to have to pivot and respond accordingly. So, because I'm not going to say I'm going to, in case they use that line and they want to cut back there, to the point that when we were doing my coverage, they were like, hey, we need you to just say the line so that she says her line that's actually scripted, because we were getting so many different things.
Oh, okay.
It's fun. It's living in the character. And the character I had specifically had just a lot of room to play. She was just goofy and fun. And one of my just greatest days on set was we had a giant, in episode 2, we had a giant LARPer scene where...
At the fair?
Yeah, so they technically filmed it at Stone Mountain.
Yeah, yeah.
But it was like it was a big LARP, live action role play scenario. And it's the scene where like Jeremy is fighting Clayton, for the suit, fake fighting. And I introduced the fight. And we must have done at least 20 takes of that, because it's such a big setup and there's so many different things. There's a lot of different angles that they were getting. And every time the director would come in and he'd be like, hey, actually, after you do that, can you say this line about the potion and then throw that in there? I was like, okay, cool. Hey, okay, so after you do the potion line, then I want you to like offer him this. I was like, okay, cool. So literally like every couple of takes, there would be an added bit. And
that was not even in the script.
That wasn't scripted. Yeah. So the whole potion bit, that was never scripted. And then they cut over to my buddy Rob, and he says, he's like, he didn't take the potion. And he was the famous one that was always like cling, cling, cling. And I'm pretty sure that wasn't scripted either, that he just made that choice.
Wow.
And so it's so much fun doing improv.
Was your character, because I remember watching that scene, like, okay, it's cool. But then I see that they give you more. It felt to me like they prioritized your character more later on. Was that the intention at the beginning? Or the way you were improvising, the way you were taking the character can open the way for more screen time and more,
So I do have one tiny story on that. So pretty much everything that you see like was originally to be there. We didn't get more screen time written in. What's interesting about these characters is they were originally written in the script, and then they were written out completely, and then they were written back in, but then they wanted name talent. But then they decided they needed no names, which to me, I mean, obviously I'm biased. Yeah. But because of who these characters are, we're supposed to be
normal people,
the normal, relatable, everyday fan. That's who we were, representing. So everything that you see, and we were kind of, as it went along, finding out what else we had. I think I originally knew I was in 2 episodes and then later found out that I was actually in 3. I mean, because Marvel's so tight-lipped about everything. Okay. There were scenes that Tempo had, she plays Wendy, bombshell character. And she'd be like, oh yeah, you're in the scene, with the elevators. And I was like, I don't have that script. I don't have those sides because I didn't have actual dialogue in that scene. So I didn't get the sides, but I was in the scene.
Wow.
So it was just this kept revealing. But they're in episode 6, in the final scene, in our final, it's so aggressive to this poor Mike. In our final scene, it's after all of the chaos has happened, and the three of us, me, Rob, and Clayton, are talking to the police. And I was still in hair and makeup because I was always in makeup. Like, it took me 2 hours. There's so many braids. And then the suit itself, it was like an 18-pound, chainmail underlayer.
So
that was real chainmail. And it really got stuck in my hair at one point. I was on the floor in my trailer, and they were just peeling it apart. I was like, oh, this is humbling. So I'm running behind because of all of the things that they got to do for this. And I get there, and Rob and Clayton, Rob's just kind of like, hey, I was like, well, what's going on? What are we doing? Because they're about to film. And I was just like, oh, we're just, we're just kind of riffing. We're improvising. We're just explaining to the policemen what happened. We're just recapping a little bit. So that entire conversation is improvised. And that's where, Rob says something. He's like, oh yeah, we're basically Avengers. And I said a line because originally we had a fight scene. We had a little fight scene. And then it got written out, I think, because of time or something. And we were all like super bummed because I wanted to do stunts. So in my brain, I'm like, all right, well, we still got to fight. So in that little improv conversation, I said something like, we're the good guys, we're helping Hawkeye. I hit a guy, but but it was fine. It was in defense. I don't believe that line made the cut, but I said it in one of the takes. And then the next time we were on set, they added back in a little stunt where I actually hit a guy with a bat. So because, they don't know what, and I don't know everything behind the scenes, this is all assumption, but I said that, which means if they wanted to use that take, they probably have to show that as a safety, So we ended up, Rob and I got 2 little stunts. He got a bump and they gave me a bat to hit a guy with. And that was after I had improvised the line and said,
because that even every little thing that that gets filmed or added represents money, represents a decision, a constant decision of let's just wing it. No, it's like there is a reason behind it. And in this case, you brought up something that gave reason to that scene to be added or that character to be off of it. That's awesome. And that's the value of improvisation and being in the moment, but at the same time, being able to go within the constraints of what you have in the script and what the director wants, within those constraints to let your imagination flow. I always see creativity as a river, that without constraints, it's just like a flood. It doesn't really become something productive. But within constraints, it can actually give life, Without those constraints, could become chaos, could actually be destructive. So creativity is a great force, it's a great force of our nature. And what we do with it and how we shape it can be life-giving, or it could be destructive as well. So when it comes to creating community through these projects that you're ambitioning and through this workshop, how important it is to you as a creative person to build a community around it, and not just oh, this is what I have, this is what I do, but and also the fact that some people say, okay, I want to do a workshop because I want to have a bunch of people sign up and pay some money. The new way of influencers, and people are like, oh, I'm going to teach you everything I know. Only follow this funnel link, whatever. But in your case, the way I perceive it is you're genuinely looking to create connections and community with people around at least your circle and your local group.
Having community and a support system has been absolutely integral. I've been working through some really difficult stuff recently. A friend has been very unwell. And if I didn't have a community to just, you have one heavy thing and then you can take some of that, but you can't take all of that. And then you trickle that down and it trickles less and less so that no one person is taking the full burden of this, the full weight of it. And so being able to have the outlets for starters, for whatever reason, legacy has been wired into me. Legacy being important, leaving something behind. Okay. Whatever that is. For a lot of people, that might be children, leaving behind somebody to help, to also bring into life, to have, that is community. I've never really been interested in having children, but it's still important to leave behind something positive on the world. It's important to me that I try to, whatever space I'm in, leave behind something positive, better, or at least not worse than what it was. Okay. And how can you make a difference if there's no one to affect? Within the creative culture, I think that with my class, with the workshop that I want to do, that I've done once, I am just very passionate about it. I love the work because I know how it has influenced my life in a positive way. And when you have something that you like or has helped you share that with everyone because it helped you, it might help them. And so it's coming from a good place. And I just, because life is tough. Life, there's a lot that you can't ever be prepared for other than to just do it. And to have people that understand or people that are willing to listen, that's where that community comes in, to know that you're not alone. One of the best things that I have been told that I've loved, it's from a man named Sam Christensen. He passed away a few years ago, and he was doing this workshop on self-branding, which greatly helps actors because it's like how we are perceived by others. But it's helpful for anyone who has a business that's trying to market, like, what is it? How are you perceived? How do you monopolize on that, essentially? And he said that our job as storytellers, in whatever facet that is, but our job as storytellers is to tell people that they're not alone. And as someone who is immensely independent and just as introverted as I am extroverted, that is deep. When you're watching anything and you start crying, you're like, I don't know what it's like to lose a child, but I am crying because there's something in there that you relate to. You empathize, you know what it's like to lose a dog maybe, or a mother, and you know that somebody sees you. Because somebody wrote that, somebody acted that, somebody directed those moments. And so, from a film perspective specifically, your job is to tell people that you're not alone. What's the point of that without community? What's the point of being a storyteller if there's no one to tell a story to?
And you mentioned something before that, we have the internet, we have YouTube to learn so many skills, so many different things.
God bless all these bored people on YouTube that are just like, I'm going to make a movie on how to build a wall. I'm done. Tell me. Yes. Thank you.
And you can learn so many of these things, but how about learning to do these things in community? That's different. Like you can't learn certain things from YouTube that you learn when you're working alongside with others. And characters that are polishing each other, situations where it's just not the same watching a video on YouTube than actually replicating that with a group of people and interacting. Or like we were sharing off camera, how, creativity can be birthed out of enhancing a multisensorial experience. It's not like out of the bloom you're going to create ideas, but many times it's when you are influenced by this sensory overload of experience that something comes out of it. So I'm thinking that, as much as we have become accustomed to learn from YouTube, learn from the web, there's still moments where sharing with each other can definitely be, or creating community can definitely be something that you don't learn online.
Life itself. Life isn't on the internet.
Wow.
You can watch dog videos all day long. You can watch dressmaking videos. You're learning my algorithm very quickly. You can watch, all these content creators make funny videos. But at the end of the day, that's just you watching it. Until you go out and do life, and that's where you get those sensory experiences. When you're having dinner with people, you're eating. When you're out in the woods, you're hearing the woods. You're feeling the crunch of sticks under you. That's life, and that's why a lot of acting instructors will say to actors, you have to be more than just an actor. You have to get a hobby. You have to travel. You have to visit family. You've got to go places and do things so that you can get experiences that can make you a better storyteller. And yeah, that can't happen on a computer. And I think we've been down a path where we are so attached to screens. And I don't think that's going away, but I see this kind of need to come back and to reconnect
From a virtual reality to
reality. Yeah. And don't get me wrong, if virtual reality gets to a place where it's well, let's enter this other world, what was
explore.
Yeah, there's benefits to that. I don't deny that. There's benefits, but you can't breathe fresh air in virtual reality, the way you can camping or just going for a walk in the park. And I think it will always come back to, we need to ground ourselves again. And when you start getting suckered in and you start getting resentful or oh, I wish I could do that, I could never do that, even if watching the videos is that's funny, I want to make a video, go make the video then. But we're very good at saying, if you talk about a project enough, it tricks your mind into thinking that that's good enough.
Okay.
You never actually get around to doing it because talking about it makes it fulfilled enough that you might do it, but you don't actually do it.
Wow.
And if you just watch videos and say oh, that's funny, I could never do that. You're right. If you don't, people are oh my gosh, you're so good at painting or at drawing. I could never do that. Well, have you tried? It's if you don't want to, that's one thing. But if you want to and you don't, that's on you. So you have to get out there. And a lot of times out there is among community, paint and sip, things. It's so interesting how many different immersive experiences are getting popular now.
Yes.
And I liked immersive experiences before they were cool. But you have things like the Bridgerton Ball, the Jurassic Park experience, even things like high tea, going to afternoon tea, going to a rage room, all of these very unique things that pull you out, but generally require somebody else to be there.
Yeah.
You could go by yourself, but even if you were, there's going to be other people there.
Yeah.
And so it's that immersive experience that is also putting us amongst our fellow peers and people that have similar interests.
Because it's going to the movies, different from a theater with people at the movies, different than watching the same movie, even if it's on a big screen at home. There's something about that energy that is in the room, those claps, whatever it is, that general communal experience that the movies created, that is fading away for the most part, but still is very unique, hard to reproduce outside of that environment. But through this conversation, I think I learned a lot today.
Yeah.
I think one takeaway for me is I'm definitely gonna marry Kondo my life.
Marie Kondo, your mental health.
And in my career, in whatever is not bringing joy, I have to bring it back and question it, and maybe it's not worth it.
Yeah.
So I think
And
he,
it's okay.
yeah,
That's okay. That's
there,
the thing about it.
there might be other people that, want to connect with you through the workshops, will like to follow your journey, learn more about your improvisation um, projects or improv projects, or learn more about dogs. So,
Or chickens,
or yes,
which I don't know much about yet.
but I always give people the opportunity to share where they can be found or contacted or through social media, whatever, so that the audience can really connect and continue this walk, because we all kind of relate to each other, and somehow, even if it's in this virtual world where we watch these videos, we start creating community that who knows how is that translates into real life. So where can people find about Adele, not the singer?
Adele, not the singer, can be best found probably on Instagram.
Okay.
It's just my for ADELLEDRAHOS, first and last name. I'm not hidden from the internet. And I always love talking about anything industry related, anything creative related. And yeah, so that'd be the best place.
Thank you for coming. Thank you for spending time. I'm really looking forward to some of these creative projects that are in my mind, that I talk about a lot.
And that we're gonna
I don't want to. I don't want it to die there. I want to actually make them, because I'm very moved by the times that I've seen you just created out of what it seems nothing, and out of nowhere, and that talks not only to the skill but to the passion that you have for what you do. So thank you for coming today. And if you enjoy this type of conversations, share it with other people on the web, and I'll see you in the next episode of Beyond the Scenes.